You're just a burden. Those were the words my father gave me on my birthday. No gift, no cake. Just those 4 knives driven into my chest. That evening they proved he meant it. My parents shoved my suitcase into the driveway, slammed the door, and told me to figure it out. I stood there in the cold, staring at the house I grew up in, realizing I was no longer welcome. But what they didn't realize was this. While they mocked me for being useless, I was the one quietly covering every family bill. The mortgages, the streaming services, and, yes, their credit cards. So when they threw me out, I logged into the accounts. 3 luxury flights to Barcelona. Designer shopping sprees. Frozen. And that was only the beginning of what I uncovered. My name is Nora, and I never imagined my birthday would become the day I lost everything, and started everything. It began quietly. That morning I woke up to silence. No one had said, "Happy birthday." No card on the counter. Just the smell of my father's coffee drifting down the hall. At dinner I gathered courage and asked, "Did you forget what today is?" Dad's fork clattered against his plate. He looked at me with tired, angry eyes. "We didn't forget. We just don't care. You're old enough to stop expecting special treatment. You're just a burden, Nora. Always have been." The words cut deeper than any knife. Mom didn't defend me. Lydia, my younger sister, smirked like it was a private joke. I excused myself, my appetite gone. Hours later I heard the shuffle of boxes. My door opened and Dad tossed in a duffel bag. "You're leaving tonight. We're done supporting you." "Supporting me?" I whispered. My chest tightened. "I've been the one supporting you." They shoved me onto the porch, suitcase in hand. The door slammed, locks clicking. Just like that, I was no longer their daughter, I was disposable. I stood under the dim streetlight, tears burning, hands trembling. The house I grew up in loomed behind me, shadows swallowing its windows. Every childhood memory suddenly felt like a lie. For an hour I sat on the curb, phone clutched in my hand, wondering where to go. A friend's couch. A cheap motel. Then a thought struck me, a mix of fury and clarity. If they saw me as a burden, then let them feel what it's like to live without me. I opened my banking app. My father's credit card, the one he bragged about using for business trips, was linked to my account because I'd been paying the bills on time. My mother's streaming subscriptions. My sister's online shopping. Even the flights they had secretly booked to Barcelona in first class. Hit lock. One by one the accounts froze. At first, I expected guilt to wash over me. Instead I felt lighter. It was the first time in years I wasn't their servant. But as I stared at the frozen accounts, something else caught my eye. Transactions I had never seen before. Thousands of dollars flowing in and out. Names I didn't recognize. My heart skipped. What had my family been hiding all this time? I sat on the curb that night with my suitcase beside me and my phone glowing in my hand. The sting of my father's words, "You're just a burden," still rang in my ears, but now another sound filled my chest, the steady thrum of fury. I had locked their credit cards, yes. Their luxury flights to Barcelona were cancelled with a single tap. But when I froze their accounts, I noticed something odd. Buried between grocery runs and gas charges were transfers I didn't recognize. Thousands of dollars, sometimes tens of thousands, flowing in and out like hidden tides. I frowned, scrolling faster. Who was RMC Holdings? Why were their monthly payments labeled as consulting fees to companies I'd never heard of? And why did my sister Lydia's card show purchases that didn't match her spoiled lifestyle? Transactions for jewelry shops in cities she'd never visited. My stomach knotted. Something was off. Check deeper. For years, I'd been the one paying off the balances. I told myself it was temporary. A way to keep peace at home. They said they'd pay me back someday. But now, seeing these patterns, I realized I had been doing more than paying their bills. I had been covering their secrets. The phone buzzed in my hand. A text from Dad lit up the screen. "What did you do? The cards aren't working. Fix it now." I didn't reply. Then came Mom. "We have a flight tomorrow morning. Stop this nonsense, Nora. Flight. Not anymore. Barcelona was gone. And finally, Lydia. You're pathetic. Do you think this makes you powerful? You'll regret this. I exhaled slowly, my thumb hovering over the screen. For years they had fed off me. My silence, my labor, my money. They thought I'd never push back. But tonight, I wasn't the same Nora they dismissed. Tonight I was holding the strings. I dragged my suitcase down the street to a late-night diner, the kind with flickering neon signs and sticky tabletops. I ordered coffee I couldn't taste and opened my laptop. The accounts unfolded in front of me like a map of betrayal. Dad wasn't just buying luxury flights. He was funneling money to a woman's name I didn't recognize. Multiple hotels. Fancy restaurants. It didn't take a genius to put the pieces together. My chest tightened. My mom had no idea. Or maybe she did and chose to ignore it. Then Lydia. My perfect little sister. The one who called me a burden most often. She had been pawning jewelry. Expensive, custom-made. Not the cheap designer knockoffs she flaunted. But where had she gotten the money to buy it in the first place? And Mom. Her account showed donations to charities I'd never heard of. A quick search revealed they weren't charities at all. They were shell accounts. It hit me like a wave. My family wasn't just careless. They were crooked. Each of them had their own secret, buried under the assumption that I'd keep paying their bills and never notice. But now I had noticed. The diner's clock ticked past midnight. I sat there, piecing together the puzzle of my family's double lives. My whole body buzzed with adrenaline. I thought back to every insult, every sneer. You'll never make it on your own. You're too soft to survive. You're just a burden. If only they knew. They thought they had thrown me out of my life. In reality, they had handed me the keys to theirs. I looked at the frozen accounts again. A slow smile curling at the corner of my lips. If I wanted to, I could crash their entire world. No flights. No secret hotels. No fake charities. No jewelry schemes. And the best part. They couldn't stop me. But first I needed proof. I packed up my laptop and whispered to myself. Time to pull the curtain back. Because what I had uncovered tonight was only the beginning. By the time the sun came up, I had a folder full of screenshots, bank statements, and receipts. Evidence. Proof of every secret they thought I'd never see. I didn't go home. That wasn't my home anymore. I booked a cheap motel room, spread my laptop and notes across the bed, and started building a timeline. My father's hotel stays. My mother's fake charities. Lydia's jewelry flips. One thing became clear. They weren't just selfish. They were reckless. And now, without me paying their bills, the whole system was collapsing. At 8 a.m. my phone exploded with calls. Dad. You ruined us, Nora. Unlock the cards now or don't bother coming back. Mom. Please, sweetie. We can talk about this. Just fix it before things get worse. Lydia. You're jealous. Admit it. That's why you're doing this. Jealous. Of what? A family that lived off lies and debt. I ignored them all. By noon they showed up at the diner where I was working through my files. I saw them through the window before they saw me. Dad's jaw clenched tight, Mom clutching her purse like it held her dignity, Lydia in sunglasses as if that could hide her panic. They stormed in, voices sharp. Dad leaned over my booth. End this right now. I stared at him, calm. End what? The cards, he hissed. The flights. You had no right. I tilted my head. No right. You've been using me as your personal bank for years. Every bill, every subscription, every flight, I covered it. Quietly. Without thanks. And now, when I finally stop, suddenly I'm the villain. Mom's lips quivered. You don't understand, Nora. We needed. Needed what? Cut her off. To funnel money into fake charities. To buy jewelry Lydia resold under the table. To pay for hotels Dad visited with a woman who wasn't Mom. The diner fell silent. The words hung heavy in the air. Lydia ripped off her sunglasses. You're lying. I pulled out my phone and slid it across the table. Screenshots, bank transfers, hotel bookings, jewelry invoices. Their faces drained of color one by one. Dad's fist clenched. Where did you get this? I met his eyes. From the accounts I managed. The ones you assumed I'd never check. The ones I paid month after month, while you called me a burden. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Lydia stammered. You can't use this against us. Oh, I can, I said, my voice steel. And I will. The tension cracked. Dad's anger spilled over. We raised you. We gave you everything. I laughed, sharp and bitter. Everything. You gave me insults. You gave me neglect. You gave me a birthday where the only gift was being told I was worthless. No, Dad. I gave you everything. And I'm done. Lydia slammed her hands on the table. So what, you'll blackmail us? I leaned forward. No, I don't need to blackmail you. All I have to do is nothing. Do you understand? Without me paying the bills, your cards are frozen. Your flights are gone. Your secrets are exposed. I don't have to lift a finger, and your whole world unravels. They stared at me, stunned into silence. For years I had been the quiet one, the obedient one, the forgotten one. Now I was the one holding all the power. I gathered my laptop, slid my phone into my pocket and stood. From now on, I said softly, you'll live without me. Without my money. Without my silence. Without my protection. Let's see how far you get. I walked out, leaving them frozen in the booth. 3 statues of disbelief and fear. That night, as I sat in the motel room, messages poured in again. This time they weren't commands. They were desperate. Mom, please don't tell anyone about the charities. It will ruin me. Lydia, I'll pay you back. Just unlock the accounts. Please. Dad, we can fix this as a family. Don't do anything rash. I stared at the screen. For once, they weren't laughing at me. For once, they were afraid of me. And for once, I held the power to decide their fate. But the more I thought about it, the more a question burned in my mind. How deep did this go? Because the transfers I'd found weren't small. Some of them were massive. And some of them weren't tied to Lydia or Mom at all. They were tied to Dad. And the name attached to those transfers wasn't one I recognized. Not yet. The motel room was dim except for the blue glow of my laptop. Coffee cups and scribbled notes littered the table. My head ached, but I couldn't stop digging. The strange name attached to Dad's transfers haunted me. RMC Holdings. Payments every month, sometimes 50,000, sometimes more. I traced the routing numbers, bouncing between search engines and financial databases until finally it clicked. RMC Holdings wasn't a business. It was a shell company. Fake. And worse, it was linked to criminal cases. My pulse hammered. I cross-checked the accounts again, my fingers trembling. Dad wasn't just wasting money on luxury flights or affairs. He was laundering money. Covering up something far uglier than I'd ever imagined. The next day, I walked into the public library, hunched over a computer in the corner. I couldn't risk using the motel Wi-Fi anymore. I dug deeper. RMC Holdings had been flagged before by investigators, suspected in tax fraud, bribery, even embezzlement. But no charges had ever stuck. And my dad. He was one of their consultants. That's why the transfers were labeled as fees. I sat back, my stomach twisting. All my life, he'd lectured me about being responsible, about how I was just a burden. Meanwhile, he was knee-deep in corruption, hiding behind me, paying the bills to keep his secrets buried. I whispered aloud, my voice shaking. He's a criminal. My phone buzzed. A message from Lydia lit up the screen. Dad's freaking out. He says you're playing with fire. Please, Nora. Just stop. Stop. I almost laughed. They had thrown me out, called me worthless, erased me like I was nothing. Now suddenly I was supposed to stop. I typed back one sentence. Tell Dad I know about RMC Holdings. The reply came instantly. What? I shut my phone off. That evening, as I walked back to the motel, a car slowed beside me. Black SUV. My chest tightened. The window rolled down and Dad leaned out, his face pale with fury. "Get in," he barked. I froze on the sidewalk, clutching my bag. "No. Nora, this isn't a game. You don't know who you're messing with." My voice shook, but I forced the words out. "I know enough. I know you've been lying for years. I know you've used me to cover your tracks. And I know you're terrified I'll tell someone." His jaw clenched. "You'll ruin this family." I stepped closer, my eyes blazing. "No, Dad. You already did." The SUV peeled away, leaving me in the exhaust fumes, my hands trembling. Back in the motel, I stared at the evidence scattered around me. My family's cruelty had always felt personal. Insults, neglect, betrayal. But now I realized it was bigger. They weren't just selfish. They were dangerous. I had enough proof to destroy them. But the risk was real. If Dad was tied to shell companies and fraud rings, he had connections. People who wouldn't think twice about silencing me. For the first time, fear truly settled in. I sat on the edge of the bed, clutching Daniel's old hoodie I still wore when I needed strength. What do I do? I could walk away, pretend I hadn't seen it, and maybe stay safe. Or I could stand my ground, risk everything, and finally break free. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a number I didn't recognize. Voicemail. Press play. "Ms. Miller, this is Agent Collins with the Financial Crimes Division. We've been monitoring accounts linked to RMC Holdings. We need to speak with you immediately." I dropped the phone. My chest heaved. The FBI already knew. I laughed, bitter and breathless. Dad thought he was untouchable. He thought I'd always be the quiet one, the compliant daughter, the burden who carried their secrets. But now the truth was coming whether I wanted it or not. And I was holding the evidence that could bury him. I listened to that voicemail 3 times, my heart pounding louder with each replay. The FBI already knew. They were circling my father. And now they wanted me. For years my family had painted me as weak. The burden. The useless daughter. The one who couldn't survive without them. And yet, here I was, the one person who held the key to bringing their empire down. I didn't sleep that night. By morning I made my choice. The meeting was in a plain government building downtown. No windows, no frills. Just beige walls and a table that smelled faintly of polish. Across from me sat Agent Collins, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s who wasted no time on pleasantries. "You've seen the accounts," she said. "We know you have access. Tell me what you've found." My palms were slick, but I pushed the folder across the table. Screenshots, statements, transfers. Everything I'd collected. Collins flipped through silently, nodding. "You've done our job for us." I swallowed hard. "What happens now?" She leaned forward. "What happens now is simple. We build the case. But Nora, your name is all over these accounts. If your father tries to deflect blame, he'll point the finger at you. You need to be ready." Her words hit like cold water. For years I'd been their scapegoat, their easy target. Would this end any differently? I took a deep breath. "I'm ready. Whatever it takes." For the first time I believed it. Later that day I met Marcus, the FBI's financial analyst assigned to the case. He was quiet, meticulous, the kind of person who saw patterns in numbers the way others saw pictures in clouds. "You've been paying their bills for years?" he asked, eyes scanning the data. "Yes. I thought I was helping. Keeping peace." He shook his head. "You weren't a burden, Nora. You were the glue. They built their schemes on your silence. And now, you're the one holding the wrecking ball." Something loosened in my chest. For years I had carried the label they gave me. Burden. Weakling. Forgettable. But Marcus's words cracked it open. Maybe I wasn't weak. Maybe I was the strongest one of all. That evening, back in my motel room, I sat on the bed staring at my phone. Dozens of missed calls from Mom. A string of texts from Lydia, her tone swinging between threats and begging. "Unlock the cards. Please, Nora. Dad's in trouble. Help us. If you don't, you'll regret this. I almost replied. Almost. But then I remembered my father's voice on my birthday. You're just a burden. I deleted the messages. For the first time in my life, their words didn't define me. I stood at the motel window, looking out at the city lights. Tomorrow the case would move forward. Tomorrow my father's empire of lies would start to crumble. And tomorrow my family would finally see the truth. The burden they threw away was the one person they should have never underestimated. The courtroom smelled faintly of dust and polish, the kind of place where lives fracture with a single sentence. I sat on the witness stand, hands folded in my lap, while Agent Collins questioned me. Screens lit up behind us, displaying the evidence I had gathered. Screenshots of transfers, fake charities, hotel invoices. Every secret I had uncovered now blazed in the open. Ms. Miller, Collins asked, can you confirm these accounts were linked to your father? Yes, I said, my voice steady. I paid the bills for years. I saw the transfers. He used me as a cover. Across the room, Dad's face turned crimson. He shot up shouting, she's lying. She's bitter because we cut her off. The judge's gavel cracked. Mr. Miller, sit down. But I didn't flinch. I met his rage with calm, my voice clear. You called me a burden. But the truth is, I was your shield. You hid behind me until I stopped protecting you. That's why you're here today. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Mom wouldn't meet my eyes. Lydia sat pale, twisting her hands in her lap. For the first time, I saw them not as powerful figures towering over me, but as small people collapsing under the weight of their own greed. The prosecution rolled out more evidence. Marcus's analysis tying RMC Holdings to wider fraud schemes. Every page tightened the noose. When it was over, the judge leaned forward, voice stern. The evidence is overwhelming. This court finds sufficient grounds to move forward with charges of fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy. The gavel struck. Bang. The sound echoed through me like thunder. My father's shoulders slumped, his mask of power crumbling. As the bailiffs led him away, he turned to me, eyes blazing with something between hatred and fear. You'll regret this, Nora. I stood tall. No, Dad. I regret ever believing I was your burden. The courtroom murmured. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the silent daughter. I was the voice that ended their lies. When I stepped outside, reporters swarmed. Nora, how does it feel to testify against your own family? I thought of the years of insults, the birthdays ignored, the suitcase shoved onto the driveway. Then I thought of the evidence, the truth, the gavel. I smiled softly. It feels like freedom. The courthouse doors shut behind me with a heavy thud, but it felt like a weight lifting from my shoulders. For the first time in years, the air didn't feel suffocating. It was crisp, sharp, alive. Reporters swarmed, but their voices blurred into static. Cameras flashed, but I didn't care. The only thing I focused on was the steady rhythm of my own footsteps. Steps carrying me away from the girl who had been shoved out of her house on her birthday, called a burden, and treated as less than nothing. That girl was gone. That evening, I sat alone in my motel room, staring at the glow of the city lights outside. My phone buzzed relentlessly on the nightstand. Messages from Mom, Lydia, even unknown numbers. Please, threats, apologies. Nora, please, you don't understand what this will do to us. We can fix this if you just come home. Unlock the cards. Think of your mother. Think of your sister. But for once, I didn't flinch. I didn't scramble to fix their mess. I let the phone buzz itself into silence. Because the truth was, I had already given them too much of my life. My silence, my money, my loyalty, my fear. No more. The next morning, I walked through the park with a coffee in hand. The spring air carried the sound of children laughing, dogs barking, life moving forward. I sat on a bench and let the sunlight warm my face. For so long I believed I was powerless. My father made sure of that with every cruel word. My mother reinforced it with her silence. Lydia sealed it with her mockery. But the truth, I had been the strong one all along. I had kept them afloat. I had carried their lies. And when they pushed me out, I didn't collapse. I rose. That realization wasn't just freedom, it was rebirth. Weeks later, I moved into a small apartment downtown. Nothing extravagant, just mine. Every corner reflected my choices, not theirs. A thrift store couch I actually loved. Books stacked neatly on a second-hand shelf. A little plant by the window that reached for the sun like I was. I picked up freelance work, using the same skills that once kept their finances hidden. But this time, it wasn't to cover someone else's lies. It was to build my life. One evening, as I organized paperwork at my desk, Marcus stopped by with updates. "Your father will be indicted formally," he told me. "It's going to trial. He'll face years, maybe decades." I nodded, the words settling in slowly. My father, the man who told me I was worthless, would spend his final years answering for every lie. And I would spend mine finally living. Marcus smiled faintly. "You know, you saved yourself. Most people never get that far." I laughed softly, shaking my head. I didn't just save myself. I showed them who I really was. On my birthday, 1 year after being thrown out, I didn't wake up to silence. I didn't wake up to insults or exile. I woke up in my own bed, made my own coffee, and celebrated my own survival. I lit a single candle on a small cupcake I bought from the corner bakery. And as I watched the flame flicker, I whispered, "To the girl they called a burden, you were never one. You were the backbone." I blew out the candle, smiling through tears. Looking back now, I realize that night they pushed me out wasn't the end. It was the beginning. They thought they had erased me, but they had written my story instead. The story of a girl who was underestimated. A girl who was mocked. A girl who was told she was nothing. But also the story of a woman who uncovered the lies, exposed the truth, and walked away stronger than ever.